Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 9 of Season 1, 2024 of Endurance for Amateurs here at famous Silverstone, a second former World War II Air Force base on the season, brought to you by Ninja Botanicals and AlienAwards.net. We've got a 90-minute race with GTD and GTP classes coming up, and after a week off celebrating the league's anniversary, 2 weeks ago was an exciting race at Road America where Nick Paletti earned another GTP victory, beating Nick Terrell by 4 seconds in the end. Paul Skip still holds the championship lead at 315 points, but Nick Terrell is right on his heels at 314, and Nick Paletti at 307, with 2 drop weeks factored thus far. Ken Huber continued his stellar winning streak in GTDA, finishing well out of contention of the rest of the field, while Josh Doty and Travis Rowe each earned repeat podium appearances. Huber now owns a massive 71-point lead over second-place Travis Rowe, but Tyler Langenberg and Josh Doty are within 7 points of that second-place spot. GTDB was won by Jesse Coffey for a first win on the season after 3 podiums throughout. James Foreman achieved a 6th podium on the year, and Zach Nurnberger took 3rd place on the rostrum for a 2nd on the season. James Foreman continues to lead the championship at 267 points, but Jesse Coffey is a mere 3 points back 8 races in. So we have a wonderful race coming up here at Silverstone as these drivers are just now getting some of their hot laps started. If you can tell, the weather is quite realistic. If you wondered about the realistic weather updates, that is definitely the case. It is quite foggy, so apologize if any of these shots are a little bit low on visibility, but that is just what we have to deal with here today. So looking at a great race here. This has always been an exciting racetrack in terms of driving and racing. I know the drivers tend to hate it. There's a lot of parts on this track like Jay Smart's going through right now there in Cops that are just so difficult, even in these GTP cars, to keep it stuck to the track. And a lot of people going out wide in a lot of these parts. You'll see as Jeff McDonald here is about to come up to that section as well. A lot of understeering parts in this circuit, and it suits the open wheels to be a quite decent drive, but it's very difficult to drive here in these 10 tops. Right now, Paul Skip looks to be setting a lot of purples. Again, he came in 3rd place last race 2 weeks ago. We saw him have an early incident in Canada Corner, and it kind of took him out of contention. He said that he was still drivable, but was definitely down on some speed. Couldn't really compete as much as he wanted, but Jay Smart, as you noticed there, back up to the GTP field. We saw him running in GTD for a few weeks, and due to iRating was classified as a legend, so could not be scored as points, but he is all game here in this GTP class. So his first lap had some purple sectors, but I think that we saw him actually go wide there in Cops. Something that's going to plague a lot of these drivers, I think, in this qualifying session. Ken Huber swinging around Club and down the Hamilton straight, seeing what time he can put on the board here. He is setting it at a 2:02. I believe he had the fastest time in practice as well. So looking to see if he continues that. Jeff McDonald, 7/10 back. Let's order this by gap as we get an idea. Yeah, 2/10 back to James Foreman, but not too many drivers being able to compete with Ken Huber's first time on the board here. A lot of drivers getting their first laps in right now as they come up near the line. A couple new liveries I see out there, and a lot of Ferraris. The field continues to trend more and more in that direction. Ferrari heavy. There's still a lot of variety throughout the field, but a car that I think maybe a couple of the early races in this season, just 6 races ago, we were only seeing 1 or 2 represented in the mix, and it is now the predominant car for at least the last couple of races, it feels like. So seems to be a strong car. We do see it peppered throughout the field. Still going to be very dependent on these drivers. James Foreman with a good qualifying performance so far, just a couple tenths off that Ken Huber time, and again, important to be up there as he is the GTDB leader, just ahead of Jesse Coffey, who with his first lap puts himself into 6th place. They are separated by just a few points, and it's going to be, every position matters. So it's going to be pretty cutthroat out there as we continue down this season. Both these drivers have been exceptionally consistent. Obviously, 6 podiums, as stated earlier, from James Foreman. And Jesse Coffey rarely failing to score many points, but didn't get his first win until last week. So it was a great win at Road America. I think he was full 5 positions ahead of the next B-class driver on the overall standings. He was 4th overall. see if he's able to replicate a performance like that. Sheldon Rosenbaum right now trying to improve his time. He's got a purple sector on the board and 3 greens. He was 1.4 seconds back from Ken Huber, who just improved that to a 2:01.8. Barely keeps it within track there, I believe. Jeff McDonald up to second. Sheldon Rosenbaum maybe not keeping it in track. It was a yellow sector 5 there, but I think that may have been an invalidated lap. So we wait for some more drivers to look to be setting these timing boards ablaze. Aaron Claybaugh actually coming to set his first lap on the night. No time on the board as of yet. Now heading down into the Vale chicane, really clobbered that curb. That's not going to help his speed, but seemed to navigate it well enough through the club final corner. And again, you got to stay in the track, and he did there with that extended curb. His first lap, let's see, 2:01.8 is the time to beat, and it looks like another lap not allowed on the board. Tyler Langenberg, a competitor for that second overall spot, just 1 point back, I believe, right now. 1 point back from Travis Rowe. So good qualifying position here would do him really good. He's in 5th. See if he can make an improvement. He certainly does. And moves his way up to 2nd. Still 4/10 off Ken Huber. No one able to compete with Ken Huber at the top. But Tyler Langenberg right now 2nd place. And we have a huge field spread there. GTP, I don't think anybody's improved their time in these last couple laps. Paul Skip there, still in 1st. Jay Smart 2nd, with Nick Paletti just behind him. And again, Nick Terrell also hoping to be a little bit higher than 4th, I think. Again, he's also 1 point off the championship lead from Paul Skip in this class, and could use with some extra positions gained there, but he's used some alternate strategies through this season. Last race at Road America tried a different strategy. Didn't end up working out for him as well as it did for Nick Paletti, who we nearly saw end his race early on in only the 3rd or 4th lap, but able to survive and continue on. GT3's seen some more time, some more green time. Sheldon Rosenbaum had that improvement on the previous lap, couldn't get a qualified lap in. This time it does make that actual improvement up to 5th place, 6/10, almost 7/10 off of Ken Huber's time. Nick Terrell with a few green sectors, only 1 yellow sector. Difficult to hook up an entire lap here, as you'll see from those sectors down there. And that is wide, and I don't think that he kept that within the lines, regardless of the fact that he would have lost a little bit of time there at the end of the straight. But you can see how hard he's pushing, and a really impressive save. It would be a pretty wild thing to see during the race. But as we move on through this session, Langenberg, again, already 2nd place, making some big improvements on his lap time right now. A purple with a couple of greens. He needs to make up a lot of time to get to that Ken Huber spot, but this might make him safe from some competitors that are right behind him right now. Coming up to the line, crosses the line. What time does he get? To 2:02. Shaves another couple tenths off that time. Was able to pull a little bit more of a gap from the cars behind him, but still unable to get to that Ken Huber 2nd lap that he put in. We see some yellow sectors there at the bottom of the screen. Yeah, and with 15 seconds remaining, not a lot of time to make some improvements. So I don't think we're going to see any more times improved here. Celebratory wreck there into the wall. Christopher Newby at the absolute last possible moment improves a good 4 or 5 positions there into 6th place. So a good last second qualifying performance for him there. During this warm-up period, we will verify these results. We'll be right back with you. All right, we are back, and here are our official results. Paul Skip with your pole position in GTP class. That is his 4th pole position on the year, looking to get to win number 6 on this strong championship contending season. Nicholas Paletti follows behind him by less than a tenth. Jay Smart and Nick Terrell round out the top 4, followed by Paul Boyle, Jack Colville, and John Kelly. Ken Huber takes another pole in GTDA as the 5th pole position on the season, trying to aim for, I think, 7 wins in a row with Tyler Langenberg, Jeff McDonald, and James Foreman behind him. James Foreman with a 3rd pole position on the season. Following those guys, Sheldon Rosenbaum and Chris Newby, Richard Curry and Jack Lucas, Jesse Coffey and Aaron Claybaugh, Nathan Westland and Greg Holland, Kevin Berquist and Mauricio Parada, Andrew Hicks and Zach Nurnberger, Philip Ranieri, Dan Barnett, Todd Schneider, Don McCloy, Adrian Garcia, and Daniel Sykes, and that rounds out our field. So as we get ready to go with the short pace lap, Paul Skip is coming down to the Vale chicane, ready to start off this race. No passing will be, I think, through turn 2, through that farm curve. We'll have to take a look. Paul Skip rounding the final corner now. No passing for the start of this race. He'll be under attack pretty soon after that. Through this fog, we can barely see the cars, waiting for that green flag, and he gets it. So they're accelerating down into turn 1, down the Hamilton straight into Abbey, through farm curve. We'll see if anybody has any issues on these cold tires. I imagine quite a cold track here tonight. Yeah, right now looking at 25 degrees Celsius on the track. Through one of the toughest sections on the track. Easy to go wide there. Keeps it within the bounds, taking it nice and calm as he starts out this race. And the racing is on behind him. So far, no incidents, no swap positions for any drivers throughout the field. Ken Huber leading the field in the GT3s. A little bit tighter between him and Tyler Langenberg here, followed by a fleet of Ferraris led by Jeff McDonald back there. 5 in a row, 3rd through 7th place. Everyone keeping it nice and clean now as they head through Brooklands into Luffold. Right now, Mauricio Parada getting a spot on Kevin Berquist to see if that battle's continuing to fight. Looks like he got that done into the braking zone. See what that move looked like. Tight on his tail, heading into Brooklands, and just took that inside. Kevin Berquist not fighting too hard to defend that, and Mauricio Parada doing quite well on those cold tires. Lost a bit of a gap to the car in front, making that pass. You can see that. Almost 2 seconds to Greg Holland now. Of these groups here quite close to each other. Langenberg keeping it really tight with Ken Huber at the start of this race. We haven't often seen Ken Huber stressed too much early in the race. Either he's been chasing or he's kind of stepped out at the front of it, and he's experiencing a little bit of pressure here from Langenberg, but Langenberg hasn't tried to make any moves happen so far. Up at the front, Paul Skip obviously with the fastest lap, but Jay Smart keeping it competitive with Nick Paletti as they swing through Abbey and Farm Curve again. In a very difficult section, this braking zone. We'll see a lot of, I think, traffic passes through that section there, and hopefully drivers keeping their head on a swivel, seeing that coming. Nick Terrell falling a bit into the clutches of Jack Colville there. Colville in the green and white GTP car that we see there. Nicholas Paletti just peeking his nose out, getting a little bit of clean air. But nothing happening so far. Not a lot of positions swapped. Jack Colville getting a spot on Paul Boyle earlier, which take a look at what happened in that move. Pulls out, heading through very fast, yeah, through Maggots and Beckett's actually. Not a common passing opportunity. And Paul Boyle, I just think, didn't even see it coming and just had to cede that as he just had no defense mounted at that point. In Paul Boyle, first race here in the GTPs on the season, was in the GTDs for most of this season, getting up to speed with a new wheel, or new VR that he's using, excuse me, but a new setup. And Richard Curry has spun off the track here. This is right in the braking zone of Brooklands. I wonder if maybe there was a little bit of a lub tap that he got here. Let's check the replay as we see what happened to him. Into the braking zone. Seems to be alone just a little bit too much speed. Pretty mega drift there, and trying to keep it pinned to keep going straight. Would have only lost one position, but ends up turning the car fully around and Falls to the back of the field, unfortunately, for Richard Curry there, also in a new-looking car. Fastest lap again set by Paul Skip, but stolen by Nick Paletti, so very competitive there in that GTP field despite not many positions swapped. Right now, Philip Ranieri here trying to get the upper hand on Zach Nurnberger. Both couple guys up one spot from this race. No big incidents so far outside of that spin we saw from Richard Curry, but that didn't involve any damage for any drivers. Just maybe a little bit of heated up tires for Richard Curry himself. A little bit line astern for a lot of this field. Staying close. It is not spreading out at this point. But not a lot of drivers, I think, feeling the confidence to make a big move early on in this race. You can see that line heading down into turn one, down the Hamilton straight. And most likely passing opportunity here for this track is a little bit wide there for Nurnberger. Most likely passing opportunity is going to be down the Wellington straight into Brooklands, which we saw the pass earlier in the race happen on the early lap one pass, I believe. So look for this straight here to be the most likely passing opportunity, but that's what's the beautiful thing about this track is that you can really make a move happen anywhere. The walls are not too threatening. You have a lot of grass that will slow you down and can take you out of a lot of time, but you're not likely going to crash out of this race unless you hit another driver. So we should see a minimal amount of retirements, ideally, through this race, and Ranieri just itching to get by. Nurnberger really slow through that Luffold exit, and you can see Ranieri right on the tail trying to make a move, possibly into Copse. This is going to be a bit of a Hamilton Verstappen moment, possibly. Not defending the inside, and Zach Nurnberger, and no, Ranieri deciding to bail out of that. Up at the front, Jack Colville passing Jay Smart, as well as Nick Terrell, so already going slowly there. It looks like that was on purpose, maybe a slowdown. Let's see if the Nick Terrell replay of him passing makes it clear at all what happened here. Coming through Copse, and he's already letting him off. So there may have been a slowdown that he earned from an off track earlier in that lap. It's the only explanation I can imagine at this point. Up at the front, Langenberg about equidistant to his competitor in front and behind, Ken Huber and Jeff McDonald. So far, strong showing for these drivers. And Jeff McDonald really looking for a big point haul here. He's been had a really good race at Fuji, a race that a track that he's really good at, and a pretty good point haul there in his last outing in Road America as well. But this would, I think, tie his Fuji finishing position if he got on the podium here. So this would be what he's aiming for. As no, he finished just off of the podium in that race. So, or on the podium, excuse me. Yes, sorry. So third place. So looking for another third place here, possibly better. Langenberg keeping it quite close here. We see some stuff happening further back in the field. A little bit of drama. Let's see what happened. Todd Schneider, one driver involved in at least one of these incidents. Car just stepping out on him. That BMW through Maggots and Beckett's looks like. And a bit of a tank slapper. Does he stay out of the way of the other drivers? It's on the inside. Yeah, getting it back going again. I think not involved with this incident here. Mauricio Parada following a group, getting a little bit of dirty air, touching the grass, trying to make a brave move on the 47 in front. And yeah, just a bit of a clumsy collision there. I think couldn't quite get it slowed down enough. But keeps going at least without too much extra damage. Looks like Greg Holland was the driver involved in that and had to take back off track to get going again, but looks to be okay. Jeff McDonald also, while I was talking, having an incident. His car just seemed to randomly spin out on him there, struggling to get it back going 7 seconds off the track. What was a standing third place position for him, he's down to 7th now, down 4. Jesse Coffey, been a driver I pinged as a driver that needed to do really well in this race. He's very close to that #1 spot in the class. Of course, James Foreman is his competitor. He's ahead of him, but Coffey's up 3 spots with James Foreman only up 1. So trying to close that gap, minimize that point loss, or potentially We're not even 10 minutes in this race. Potentially get up to that spot and fight for it. Look at this gaggle back here. Adrian Garcia, Don McCloy, Dan Barnett. Way off track for Adrian Garcia there, but I think just trying to avoid getting into the back of Philip Rainieri there, and a really opportunistic move for Don McCloy as he sends it into turn one. Not a typical passing opportunity, but it looks like he's going to lose out to the outside. He's going to challenge into the inside of the club, and unable to make it stick. I really thought that he had that move, and now he's around the outside, and a spin for AJ Garcia. I don't know if there was collision there. It didn't seem like there was. It seemed like they were unrelated, but let's see if we can take a look at that again. Here they come into the village section, now heading into the loop, and I think that still seems to be now they're heading through village, excuse me. And I think the spin was already happening for Garcia there, not losing too much time, but losing those few precious positions. Jack Lucas, tight battle with Aaron Claybaugh. Claybaugh up a couple spots, was able to put in a qualifying lap relatively late in the session in 10th and is up to 8th through Matt Beck. It's a very different apexes for both of these guys. Still making it through in about the same amount of time. I think Lucas probably the less optimal of the two. Jesse Coffey getting passed by Jeff McDonald, reclaiming some of those positions. Looks like that BMW has just the slightest edge in top speed as we see him heading down the hangar straight into Stowe, but no fight back from Jesse Coffey. Coffey happy to cede that position, I think. Further back, Paul Skip is moving his way through the traffic for the first time, and some positions swapping around with Nuremberger, Westland, Parada. A lot of guys here, and that's Nick Paletti and Nick Terrell there in the image. And some pieces of car just came off there. Which car? Car losing some important... I think it's the car that we see right there of Zach Nuremberger. He's missing his entire front bumper. But what possibly took that off? I didn't even see any collision. Let's see if we... Maybe see if it's when Mauricio Prada made the pass. It looked like he was still okay. It happened sometime during the lapping traffic. So Paul Skip's coming through. Nuremberger on the outside, heading into the braking zone, and just the slightest of taps into the back of Mauricio Prada's car, completely dislodging his front bumper, and that should be a pretty bad effect on his aero, his top speed. Looks like Paul Boyle we have out of the race in the GTPs as well. See if we can... Sorry, wrong one here. Let's see if we get an idea of what happened to him here. This is John Kelly making the pass on Paul Boyle. See if you see where Paul Boyle even is. I do not see it. So going off track, I don't know exactly what happened to him there. Jesse Coffey, the driver who needs to make good things happen here today, having an incident. Car scaring him there. Jeff McDonald. Oh, and a collision even. Let's take another look at that collision. Jeff McDonald going slowly through the corner. Looks like he was already getting loose because of the pass by Paul Skip. And then in his attempt to correct it, wipes out wide and blows off his entire rear wing. Jesse Coffey losing a good chunk of his rear bumper there. He is going to have to come in for repairs. Jeff McDonald may not even be able to drive in for repairs. It seems like he's doing so. Very sleek looking car that he's got now. Up on top speed, I think, maybe at this point, but way down on downforce. And it looks, yeah, you can just see him trying to make that turn, struggling as the car wants to spin. He is going to be in immediately for repairs here. So an unfortunate start for McDonald and Coffey, who both had good things lined up in this race early and are going to really have to claw back just to get a decent points haul here tonight. Nathan Westland still in chase of Nuremberger, so I don't know. I mean, Nuremberger's lost pace from Parada a little bit here, but he hasn't been passed by Westland yet. Westland's been a good attacker and defender on the season so far. So, oh, and as I say that, gets a little bit too close, and a collision there is only going to be affecting him. Again, not really a gap there. That is very much a vortex of doom, vortex of danger type situation where it looks like a door is open. The door certainly not open there in that corner, but lucky to get away with not much more than a few seconds lost and a minor amount of damage. But it really brings this group, this gaggle here, up to him. Tyler Langenberg maybe just having an incident. I can't even keep up with everything that's happening here. Langenberg getting passed by Nick Terrell, Jack Colville right behind him, and just that disruption of Nick Terrell being there. Not that Nick Terrell did anything wrong, but just the disruption in that extremely high downforce corner, just doing enough to spook Langenberg to similar situation from what we saw Jeff McDonald, just unable to make that corner. So Paul Boyle, I think, maybe having a connection issue because he is not out of this race. Oh, and Nick Terrell just lost the spot to Jack Colville there. How did this happen? Colville charging through the field, starting, I think, 5th place in just a clean textbook overtake there into the Vale chicane. Strong move and keeping that lead into the start of the next lap. So Colville is 4.5 seconds off Paul Skip, as Paul Skip really expertly managed through that traffic. But this battle here of 2nd through 5th, all within a second of each other, still 15 minutes into this race, 9 laps in. And then more moves being made further back. This 6-7 car group of Don McCloy back to Richard Curry. Couple spots shifted in between these guys. Heading into turn 1, line astern again. But that is a Greg Holland trying to make the spot on Philip Ranieri much faster through that apex, but that is just not a typical passing opportunity there. But he is going to make the passing opportunity into Village. He makes the move, and it looks like the car behind as well of Richard Curry trying to make it happen. Really, Philip Ranieri losing 2 spots in, maybe just 1 spot. Maybe just 1 spot, fighting hard to get this spot back from Richard Curry. They will be battling down into Brooklands, down this Wellington Straight. So a good defense for him there to not fall too far back. But Richard Curry's trying to have the inside braking zone of this. I think Ranieri can chop across. Yeah, safe to do so. So Ranieri narrowly defending that position for now. But what a move by Greg Holland on Ranieri into Village section. Let's take a look at that replay again that he got that spot on him. Didn't really telegraph it. I don't think Ranieri entirely saw it coming, although Holland did have some more pace through the previous corners that just weren't passing opportunities for him. And there we go. As I turn away, Richard Curry has made the move on Ranieri. Ranieri unable to defend it for much longer. Dan Barnett now threatening him from behind through Maggots and Beckett's. Certainly no battling is going to be happening through here outside of a driver really making a big mistake. And Ranieri hungry to get this spot back. We've seen the Mercedes have a top speed advantage at other tracks before. He's happy to use this draft. Let's see if he tries to pull out at the end here. Heading into Stowe. Yeah, just heading back to the racing line. Curry, I think, ahead enough to not really struggle too much. Let's see how that move was made further back. I think just a bad exit for Ranieri there, and having to take that outside line was just going to hurt him all the way into Copse. And trying not to fight it too much is just a difficult corner to try to be doing some battling. It's just very high speed. The battle continues to rage on. A little bit further up, Adrian Garcia in that classic Ferrari livery. And, of course, in the Ferrari, too. Trying to catch up to Nathan Westland. Greg Holland is a aggressive driver here early, making some strong moves. And he is reclaiming some spots from an early incident. We saw him, I think, really not due to any fault of his own, but in an incident earlier in the race where he did lose quite a bit of time. So he's trying to reclaim that. Also, at the front of the field, Sheldon Rosenbaum has closed the gap to James Foreman to 3 or 4 tenths, trying to catch up. Again, the guys that we've seen up at the top have had some issues, and so these guys making up some spots. We saw Langenberg lose a few. We see Jeff McDonald now at the very back of the field. He is still in this race, has come in for the pit stop, but obviously that is not going to be the optimal schedule for him, as these GT3s can go all the way until the halfway point of this race and further. They can some tracks going up to 55 minutes on a single tank. So if you're not making it to at least the 38 to 40 minute mark before having to pit for an emergency, you're going to be totally off the strategy, unfortunately. So Jeff McDonald did get the pit done, but he's going to be coming in for another one just like everyone else. Lucas on the inside into the Vale chicane. Aaron Claybaugh giving him plenty of room, leaving that door open, but just wasn't close enough to make it happen. Claybaugh inviting a little bit of danger there, leaving that door open, but playing it safe, I think, as well. Greg Holland looks like he has made the spot on Nathan Westland there. Let's see if that was done into the Vale chicane like we just saw the move trying to be made against Aaron Claybaugh. Yeah, fighting for each other. Almost coming into the back of Adrian Garcia there, but staying out of his way. Wonderful move there for Greg Holland. And yeah, he's hounding right now Adrian Garcia too. It just seems like a matter of time for him to get by. Holland down just 2 positions now from where he started, despite that early incident. So a true hard charger here early in this race. Lucas was unable to make the pass happen into Vale last lap, but has kept on the bumper of Aaron Claybaugh, shown his pace here. And Lucas up 1 spot, Aaron Claybaugh 4 from where he started, and 10th, now up to 6th. And Lucas threatening to send a move there into cops. Nothing doing at this point. Nathan Westland getting back ahead of Greg Holland. Right when I turn, every time I turn away, the action happens. Holland, who looked like he was about to claim the position from Garcia, has now lost a position. See if we can get an idea of what happened here. This is through Luffold, and Holland just extra wide. And that's exactly what we saw with Philip Ranieri just a couple laps ago as well. A little bit ahead of these guys. Don McCloy chasing down Nürnberger, so maybe Nürnberger not actually suffering any ill effects from that missing front bumper. Sometimes the damage can be a little bit weird in what it is that truly affects the pace. But it seems that he's doing all right. Seems like a plenty controllable car. I mean, it was a very minor collision. It shouldn't have had the kind of damage it did, completely taking his front bumper off. But there's also the potential that he actually isn't damaged in his sim. It could be a disconnect between our simulations, which has happened before, especially with minor collisions like that. But right now, looking like it's a real damage for him, and Don McCloy just not close enough to make the move. We've seen some cheeky moves made in the village, and it is a daring move to make. It is definitely a pass that can be made, but it does require some cooperation with drivers around you. Don McCloy close enough with a strong exit there to make something happen potentially down the straight. McCloy pulling out to the side. More than a car length back, though. Is Nürnberger going to give him the space? Is he going to open the door? He is. McCloy down the inside. He is ahead. Nürnberger trying to switch back. Will McCloy close off the door? I just don't think Nürnberger with the pace to make this defense happen. So, move done for McCloy. And a great move that was. Take another look at that from another angle. Taking that inside line. Very difficult to fight it around the outside unless you are a good amount ahead and can earn that space on the exit of it. But Nürnberger already a few noses behind there at that point of the corner. So just having to bail out of that one, live to fight another day, and live to get that car repaired as soon as he can. But we're still quite a bit out of that repair window. And as Paul Skip back there, picking his way through traffic again. Jack Colville has closed the gap to what was 4.5, 5 seconds, now down to just a 1.5 seconds. And he's making his way through some difficult traffic here. Andrew Hicks there, I think, giving Paul Skip the room, but definitely losing a lot of pace. And did he go off track there? Oh, lock up for Nick Terror, Nick Paletti maybe behind. Yeah, I think that was Nick Paletti with that lockup. Or we saw GTP. That isn't Jack Colville. I think that's Paul. That is Paul Boyle. That's Paul Boyle, who is on a different lap. He came into the pits at some point, and so that was the lockup from him. I think still on some fresh tires right now. And it is setting off a lot of battles here. Adrian Garcia getting the spot on Zach Nurnberger. I believe he was behind. Yeah, he was behind, trying to make that move happen, using the traffic around him. I don't think Nurnberger can really do anything to fight back against this, as that was Nick Paletti there heading his way through. A little bit of a concession. Oh, and the Paul Boyle nearly getting into the back of Andrew Hicks there. Lucky to avoid him, sending it around the outside. Just struggling a little bit with that GTP car. Again, his first race on the season in that. And proven to be a bit of a handful early on. At the front, James Foreman loses a little bit more each lap to Ken Huber. But the battle to Sheldon Rosenbaum has continued to stay close. I mean, you can see there trading laps by just a matter of 100s, 300s, 200s to Foreman, back to 300s for Rosenbaum, and neither driver really getting a big edge on each other. But they both are certainly losing out to Ken Huber in this section of the race. We saw him getting a little more threatened earlier on. Meanwhile, further back, Greg Holland, again involved in some action, just got passed by Nathan Westland. He had made the pass, and he lost the position again. Nothing happening in the Stowe. Let's see if a move is made into Vale from any of these guys here. We have a lot of positions fought for, and Nathan Westland thinking about it, really thought about it on Zach Nurnberger there. With nothing happening there, let's see what happened with Holland and Westland just a little bit ago. So Westland getting held up a bit by Zach Nurnberger there, going out wide, and Magus Beckett's immediately losing that position, but just somehow with sheer willpower fighting back to get that spot, using a little bit of draft for sure, but I really didn't think that he'd be able to get that back after losing that momentum. Nurnberger fighting with Nathan Westland on the outside. John Kelly making things a little bit more interesting, and Greg Holland gets the spot on Nathan Westland. Very opportunistic to follow that GTP through. Westland trying to stay wide, and nothing he could do. Jay Smart competing in this GTP field again, and he's got some damage to the front right of that car, very obvious from this top-down camera that we're looking at, and I have to wonder what incident that came from. Not sure, however, it does mean that he's picked up some incident points, hurting his safety point total, but he is putting Nick Terrell under a lot of pressure. Again, Nick Terrell desperately trying to get as many points as he can here. Paul Skip continues to skip away down the road, while Nick Terrell is just 1 point off that overall lead. But as a result, because of that 1 point, those safety points are just ultra important. Again, in the last race, Nick Terrell coming in second place, but also came with 4 safety points, while Paul Skip's third place came with 0. So instead of just the 2 points gained because of the position difference between the two guys, he gets another 4 points. So that was a 6-point swing that he had in that last race. I mean, if he's able to do something similar here as far as safety points goes, even if he finishes behind Paul Skip, there is the potential that he could still overtake Paul Skip, especially because those safety points do not get dropped with the race scores. Richard Curry is bringing himself into this battle from 12th on down to 16th. You can see there, has spent a good amount of this last few laps, 2 or 3 seconds back, but he has now officially entered himself into this. Luckily, the track conditions clearing up a good amount. We can see a lot better. Langenberg losing a spot, but I can't even tell. Looks like another incident for Tyler Langenberg. He's in the Audi. The Audi has been difficult to control, that is for sure. Drivers have complained about it. It was one that was used a lot earlier in the season before we saw a lot of incidents looking exactly like that. And I think a lot of the people using the Audi moved on to use the Ferrari, another mid-engine type concept. But Langenberg losing another spot there was, at the start of this race, really looking like an actual threat to Ken Huber for the win. Now he's clinging on to 7th place and trying not to fall back any further than that. He does have a big gap behind to Kevin Bergquist. But it is a bit of a rough start, rough first third of this race for him. Meanwhile, Jack Colville just brought this gap down to sub 5/10. He continues to charge on Paul Skip. It's down to 2/10. Where is this pace coming from? Jack Colville is about to make the move into the village. He makes the move on the inside. He came from absolutely nowhere, and he's got the lead. Jack Colville on one of his first races on the season. I don't think it was his debut. I think this is only his second race on the season. Has taken the lead from longtime mainstay championship contender Paul Skip. And this is his first race, Jack Colville, in the GTP. And already a strong showing, qualified a little bit off the pace, it should be said. But so far in this race, his race pace has been stellar. And Skip just trying to cling on here, but it just almost seems like Colville's on a different set of tires than Skip as he just continues to pull away. And down these straights, I just don't see anything that Paul Skip's able to do to fight back. Now heading through Cops, and it continues to stretch out. So the tires just seem like they're in a much better window right now for Jack Colville's car. And we'll see if Skip's able to do anything in response. It doesn't seem like anything in the immediate moment. Maybe something strategy-wise down the road, although that exit through Church was certainly better for Paul. Through Chapel, excuse me, for Paul heading down the Hangar straight, but I don't think he's going to be close enough to make something happen. Was definitely close enough to want to, but nothing happening here. Now moving down into the Vale chicane. Again, Paul Skip has to be thinking about that first pit stop as well. The GTPs will need to make 2 pit stops, and so you could do something making it 3 equalish length stints, which would have been, we just hit that 30-minute mark. So if he is considering trying to do that, this would now be a good time because he's just unable to keep up with Jack Colville now, I'm afraid. GTP class is fought throughout the field right now, too, because Jay Smart, again, continuing to catch up to Nick Terrell, has not let him out beyond more than a second gap in the last 5 laps, but we haven't seen a move made. Also, Jack Lucas trying to finally make the move on Aaron Claybaugh. We haven't seen a lot of moves made in the Stowe. Is he going to be one of the first drivers to do it? Heading around the outside. I don't know if this is going to be able to be done. It's going to keep fighting into the chicane, and a pit stop for Aaron Claybaugh. I think Lucas was going to get that spot regardless. Nice move for Jack Lucas, and also a smart move for Aaron Claybaugh to abandon that lost momentum when he could, although the only thing I'm worried about is can he make it to the end? Going nearly an hour more on this second stint seems a bit long, but if somebody has calculated it, it would definitely be Aaron Claybaugh or one of his teammates putting a lot of time and practice into these sessions. This exact battle, we have seen it plenty of times. Every time we come to it, and they're in a totally different order. Right now, the order is as it stands: McCloy, Parada, Garcia, Hicks, Nurnberger, Holland, Curry, and Westland. With Westland making a bit of a mistake there. But we have seen this group swap positions so many times, and really, and dear Greg Holland, that is not a, again, Vortex, that's exactly where I think Nathan Westland got himself in trouble with Zach Nurnberger, getting himself spun a little bit, and nearly happening for Greg Holland himself, and Jay Smart coming into the pits. So that is that position gain for Nick Terrell, because Smart coming into the pits is our first GTP, making that happen. Very deep for Greg Holland. Taking a lot of alternative lines in this race. Oh, Jay Smart actually not coming into the pits. He may have had an incident. Let's see, saying that he's crashed here. We're here in the Vale chicane. This is the end of the lap. And just pulling off. So that seems very deliberate. Was in an extremely tight battle, so not sure what happened there. As we turned away, of course, Adrian Garcia making his way around Mauricio Parada. So let's take a look at how that move was made. Very similar looking cars. You can tell they're just like slightly different. I don't think that they're the exact same. It does look like the same livery, maybe made by 2 people. I don't know. I can't tell. Yeah, it is slightly different. Fun little 2 tastes of that Ferrari livery. But the battle rages on for this field. Right now with the gaps, I mean, as much as they can for this race, cooling off a little bit, take just a few minute break. Be right back with you. All right, we are back in a couple absolute slobber knocker battles there. Mauricio Parada and Adrian Garcia fighting it out through the final sector of the course. Do not ask me to tell you which one was which. I don't know. They look basically identical. Can't tell them apart. And then there, Nathan Westland and Andrew Hicks, battling it out, and a little bit of a collision as they headed down into Stowe, getting quite feisty, and it has been quite clear that any position you make in this race, it is not safe. You are liable to get passed back again. This track is just so well designed for that kind of give and take. You're ahead in one corner, you lose it in the next corner. You're ahead in the corner after that. Lots of left rights, lots of abilities for cars to go side by side. I mean, maybe the drivers are cursing inside their helmets here tonight with some of the frustrations of the track limits and such. But it is a wonderful race that's been going on today. Probably the most exciting race we've seen all season long. And battles still continuing to be close through the field. Ranieri trying to get Zach Nuremberger. We saw this battle all the way back in lap 4 or 5, and that is heated back up. These two next to each other again. Nuremberger nursing that damage. Now that we're coming to that 40-minute mark, it seems that he should be safe to make that pit stop at this point. There is a good amount of off throttle. Again, that's a great example through Maggots and Beckett's. The coaxing of the car through that section does help with the fuel mileage a little bit. But this is not the only close battle through the field, trying to keep an eye on which one's going to be made. Langenberg maybe making the move down into turn 1. Difficult passing opportunity, but just must have taken the exit of that final corner and then through the Hamilton straight just so much better. Zach Nuremberger coming into the pit lane just like I had predicted. So he's taking advantage of that, going to get that repair done, ideally. Hopefully he doesn't forget to turn that on. Rosenbaum trying to make the move into second on James Foreman. Foreman has been not comfortably, but solidly ahead for the last, 10, 15 laps with Rosenbaum behind, but Rosenbaum, that was the closest we've seen to him making the move. Meanwhile, Paletti there, we just saw him up actually just in front of these two guys, the two cars in front of them on track. Paletti was getting really close to Nick Terrell. Nearly thought he was going to make the move, but it looks like they've pulled apart a little bit, and as I say that, it's now closing back down to sub half second. So move actually might be made soon, imminently. Rosenbaum trying to make an imminent move as well. Heading down into Stowe. We haven't seen a lot of moves made into here. It's a popular passing opportunity for the open wheels, but I think that just the survival through Maggots and Beckett's is so difficult for these cars that it just takes everything to... Okay, we get a pit stop for Nicholas Paletti. But it just takes everything for him to just survive that section, that there's not a lot of gaming the exit to try to get that overspeed and make the move. And it also seems like Stowe is a difficult corner with the lower downforce of these cars to make the pass happen. But we're seeing the passes elsewhere, like such as turn 1 into Abbey, which is not a normal passing opportunity for the open wheelers that normally run here. And Rosenbaum, wishing he was close enough to be one of those guys to do that, taking a slightly different line at the very least. We've seen a lot of moves into Village. See if he tries to do anything here. You can definitely send it from way downtown, but not doing it here so far. Rosenbaum has been quite calm in the race today so far. Up a couple spots. Haven't seen him make any too crazy of moves. But a driver that we saw debut a few races ago, I believe. I don't think we saw him last race out at Road America, if I'm not mistaken. Taking a look, yes, debuted at Mugello, and wonderful second place that he got there. Was the second to Ken Huber, of course, who is again continuing to win this race up 6 seconds, and we haven't even got to the pit stop, and that's where his magic comes from. Is usually in the pit stop, as really strong stops somehow takes such a small amount of fuel. But Rosenbaum coming in second in that race, trying to repeat that again with another second place. Again, James Foreman in a different class, but that is not going to prevent him from defending because the points are worth what the number is. Foreman is being compared to and competing with other drivers in that GT3B overall season championship, but the amount of points you get is solely based on that overall class-based finishing position. So Foreman with a incredibly impressive run so far today. He is the, again, leader of the class by 3 points over Jesse Coffey. And Jesse Coffey, unfortunately, did qualify well in 19th, made up a few positions, and then we saw an early incident clobbering that chicane for Rosenbaum. But Coffey now down to 19th, 40 seconds off of Todd Schneider in 18th. It has just been a difficult night for him. He pit on lap 9 as well, or lap 11, excuse me, so still needing to come in for another pit stop. Tyler Langenberg, though, one of the first guys at the front of this field making a strategy-based pit stop here. Yeah, interested to see what happens to some of the guys we saw pit a little bit earlier. Zach Nuremberger and Dan Barnett both pit on lap 19. Nathan Westland was the lap before that. We saw Claybaugh as early as lap 15, which I think was around the 35-minute, 30-minute mark. Seemed a bit aggressive as far as how early that came, but we'll only know by the end of this race. Paul Skip, meanwhile, at the front, has still not come in for his pit. I really thought that after he got passed by Colville, he was going to take that opportunity to try and undercut it, because it just seemed like his tires weren't in the same kind of window that Colville's were. That gap has definitely started to drop back down. Colville had extended over to more than a couple seconds, now down to about a second. So maybe Paul Skip finding some late stint second wind. But again, the fact of the matter is that he's still behind. And if he's going to pit on a similar strategy to Colville, he needs to have a really impressive in-lap, out-lap, pit amount of time, fuel conservation, etc., to make that move versus potentially, if he had pit earlier, if the tires were an issue, if that is what was causing him some gremlins inside that car, maybe would be able to, you have a longer amount of time to try that undercut. But again, still 2 pits to go for both of these guys, so there's still strategy to be played beyond when they pit next, because that last splash and dash, which is what it looks like they're shaping up to do, will be interesting. So we have now hit the halfway point of this race. Some of these GT3s might be a little more inclined to make the pit stop. We already saw right there Langenberg as one of the top competitors already making his stop. And he's a couple seconds behind Aaron Claybaugh. Again, Claybaugh we've already seen stop and was definitely ahead of Tyler Langenberg before that pit stop. So if he's able to make it to the end, a very effective strategy for Claybaugh so far in this race. Nicholas Paletti looking like he had an incident here. That was hitting the back of... excuse me while I try to remember who that was there. Trying to get a number on that. So we take a look at that again. That was the number. I can't get a look at that. BMW in the field. Richard Curry, I believe. No, Richard Curry's not in that BMW. Potentially Todd Schneider. Excuse me. Apologies, Todd. Todd Schneider involved in that. It looks like his car is all right. So we couldn't get a further back clip to really understand what happened there. But it seemed like Paletti taken by surprise maybe by something that happened there, because he came up there pretty quick. So hopefully no damage to Paletti's car, because he's already made his pit stop. He's the one GTP to have already made a stop and can't really afford to come back in right after. But we'll see what happens for his race. Meanwhile, Skip closer than he's ever been. Maybe he heard me talking in the booth up here saying he needed to pass him on strategy. Paul Skip maybe trying to pass him on track here. Brought it down to just 4/10 as they got their way through Copse. Now through Maggots and Beckett's, which we've seen him drive a little bit better than I think Colville, but Colville actually stretching it through that time. Again, really impressive showing for Jack Colville here. Very much an unknown quantity coming into this race. And even more so with the qualifying. It's not like he qualified on pole and showed like, oh, you know, he's going to come out here, take the lead. He pretty quietly picked his way through the field after starting in 6th place. Only one driver behind him. And now up to 1st with drivers not just behind him, but quite a bit behind him. Paul Skip, the only guy even remotely close right now. There was an incident, I think, for Nathan Westland Let's take a look at what happened for him here. Just through Maggots and Beckett's, I believe. Just too much speed, so cutting the track. Not really a lot that's going to hurt him there other than probably a slowdown that he has to serve. And somehow when I turned away, Skip lost a whole second and a half. It was half a second to Jack Colville. Something happened in that first sector of this lap 28, and he is well off. He's going really slow there through that. I just wonder if the car's struggling. Really easy on the throttle. You can hear that. So just really gentle on that throttle application. Langenberg trying to reclaim the position from Aaron Clayball. Both these guys have pit, so this is for a real position. This is not Langenberg picking his way through some off-strategy traffic. These guys both have made their pit stop. I assume Aaron Clayball intending to pit only once. Just to pit quite early, so I don't know what the result is going to be for him. Rosenbaum again bringing the heat to James Foreman, but is he going to actually make a move happen? We've seen him half attempt a move so far, nothing actually coming, and still not doing so. Again, we've got the GTPs now coming in, so Colville and Skip both pitting. Oh my gosh, Sheldon Rosenbaum sending down the inside. I didn't even see that. I could not have imagined he was going to be trying to make a move there. James Foreman left in the dust in third place, but a slow exit for Rosenbaum might make him a little bit vulnerable. I think that he kind of parked on the apex there enough to protect himself into Brooklands. But Skip and Colville come into the pits on the exact same lap, which a bit of an interesting situation for that. Really no guy getting an advantage over the other, either an undercut or overcut. So matching each other on that. Let's take a look at how that move was made. As it really just came out of nowhere. I didn't even see, I mean, you could see in the turning of James Foreman there, he was ready to take the racing line just like normal, and he had to do a bit of a double take on that steering wheel as he jerked it and was confused. Oh, I'm getting past here. So Rosenbaum up to second, again trying to replicate the second that he had a couple races ago. Skip and Colville interested to see. So Colville out of the pits a lot earlier than Paul Skip. Now Skip's gap is nearly 4 seconds. Now, was that time in the pit stop or not? Let's see. As we bring up pit time, not really, only half a second different between the two. But the pit lane time extends to about a second. So Skip a little bit less efficient, I guess, in that pit stop, and couldn't really afford to go the other direction. And has a lot to claw back now here. We'll see how he does on these cold tires. Difficult to make him work. And he looked really good at the start of this race. And it did seem like it took Colville a few laps to get going before he started to really pick his way through the field. So maybe this is an opportunity for Skip to try to fight back a little bit. I'm not sure if it's going to happen. Berquist losing a spot to Don McCloy, which was not a battle I think we saw brewing. So must have closed up pretty quick. And Langenberg just made the pass on Aaron Clayball as well. So let's take a look at both of these. So this is Langenberg making the move. Just a bit wide for Clayball. As you can see, he just bailed out of that. Knew that he wasn't going to make it. And a very smart move to just take himself off track as opposed to trying to stick it and losing control. That would be a much worse thing to happen. And here's that move McCloy made into Stowe. Again, haven't seen many moves made there. But Berquist not really fighting it all that much. McCloy just a good run through Maggots Beckett's to make that happen. Prada did get a spot on Garcia as well, but I think this may be from coming into the pits. Yeah, okay. Not a real spot. You do the pit stop is definitely the pit loss is helped by how much track you skip coming into the pit lane. As you've seen, they just take a straight shot and don't have to take this last chicane that these two drivers are going through right now. And so it does help minimize that amount of time lost in those pits, but these guys are all going to be pitting the same amount of time. It's not enough where it can allow a new strategy where drivers are pitting an extra time for anything other than an emergency. Westland trying to claim some spots on Nürburgring. Nürburgring with a fully assembled car again this time. So he did have that damage, but yeah, he handled that quite well. Maybe wasn't really affecting him that much, but if it was, he was doing a great job to fight through that, not really losing too many positions given the circumstances he was in. Heading down the Wellington Straight, and nothing happening for Westland yet. Also a little bit further upfield, Ranieri being chased by Andrew Hicks just behind. Ranieri has found himself up and down this field within a lot of action, as well as Andrew Hicks too. So Paul Skip picking his way through that field, and Skip has actually lost even more time to Jack Colville. I don't know if maybe traffic has had a hand in that, but he's nearly to 8 seconds back. Colville, what looked like a tight pass and then a competitive fight back for Paul Skip, he potentially could really step away with it as we start to close in on that 2/3 mark through the race. Couple off tracks for some drivers. Let's see, Jesse Coffey. Yeah, both these drivers, Jesse Coffey and Nick Terrell. Wow. Okay, the damage repairing it. That was a massive collision between the two drivers, and just fixing itself. Not for Jesse Coffey's car. Coffey towing to the pits, but Nick Terrell seemed to be okay. And I think Terrell had already. It was a bit of a late move over for Coffey. I think he was letting another car by potentially. Nick Terrell's into the pits. Actually, that does look pretty bad, but it doesn't look as bad as what we initially saw before it reset itself. Pretty mangled up front bumper to that car, but at least still an intact bumper. Now, this is Nick Terrell's first pit, I believe. So I think, no, second pit. This is his second pit. So I think he'll be fine. I think he's okay as far as strategy. Not that he wanted to pit now, but I don't think this is going to too negatively impact his race. Yeah, you can see he's getting that fuel. He's maybe out of the race. He's out of the car. Did he forget to set his fast repair potentially? I guess I didn't notice if that damage immediately fixed itself. That may have been what we just saw happen there with just a bit of forgetfulness, possibly in a very frantic moment. Again, very easy to do. It's been said before, there should be some sort of automatic, you can toggle the ability for it to turn fast repairs on once you reach a certain level of damage, and certainly that's a level of damage I think he would have liked to have fixed. That's exactly why he came in, but Nick Terrell now out of this race. So John Kelly is going to inherit that 4th place spot, and the podium looks like it's going to be Colville, Skip, Paletti. What order? Probably the order it's currently in, but there's still a lot of race to happen here. But Nick Terrell, the championship contender, who on the season has a total of 6 podiums, which matches Paul, Skip, and Paletti. 6 podiums each for all 3 of those guys. He is going to fall back in that category, it looks like, to both Skip and Paletti, who should be getting their 7th podiums here tonight. So this will be a bit of a blow to Nick Terrell's season. He doesn't really have any bad races yet on the record, and I think this will be his lowest score outside of his missed race in that season opener of Daytona. Andrew Hicks making a move on Jack Lucas. Don't see where Jack Lucas is. Oh, way off track there, so easy enough for Hicks to make that move. Not sure what happened to Lucas there. Maybe just getting a little bit out of control and having to turn into that counter steer. This battle here with Westland and Nürburgring continues to be close. James Foreman into the pit lane. We still haven't seen most of the GT3s come in. We're nearing the hour mark. We saw Okayama, I think, the longest stints. I thought it was 55 minutes, but it must have been 65 minutes from, I believe it was Chris Newby. It was Chris Newby or Chris Craig. It was a Chris. One of those guys taking it the longest in that Okayama race. Okayama very heavy on the off throttle. There's a lot of lifting here in this course, especially in the 10 tops, but there's still 3 straights to contend with as far as fuel conservation goes. So I have to imagine that it was 65 minutes for that time. So as we close in on that hour mark, expect most of this field to come in. We've now seen Parada, Rainieri, and Hicks all coming into the pits. And Westland already has made his pit stop. Nuremberger's already made his pit stop. These guys pit quite a bit ago, so we'll see where they shake back out, as they've been in these 15, 16 kind of positions, but they're going to get some of these spots soon from some of these guys stopping. And they were in a close, competition with a lot of these guys who are just now pitting on this lap. So I'm very keen to see what happens. Nick Terrell is not out of this race. It does seem like he's in the pit. He's been there for 4 minutes and counting, but he is no longer counted as out. So not sure if he intends on continuing this race or not. But you can see some positions gained. So Rainieri, Hicks, Parada all falling behind Nuremberger and Westland here as they make their way through the first sector of this track. And I think Westland's going to send it down the inside. I can't believe he didn't commit to that. It seemed like he had the gap. These two coming up on Todd Schneider, I believe, not for position. Lapped car that they're making their way around. But it looks like a decently successful strategy that these two guys have pulled, pitting earlier, because they've got a good gap, 6 seconds back from Rainieri to Westland. And other than Curry, I don't think any of the drivers ahead were ones that were involved in this really tight battle. Speaking of tight battles, Langenberg trying to claim the position on Jack Lucas. Langenberg's just trying to get back some spots after an early mistake that happened in the first 30 minutes of this race. We've just now crossed the hour mark as we close in the last 30 minutes. And it looks like a move being sized up here. Potentially nothing happening. Pit stops for Newby and McCloy. Pit stop for Jesse Coffey further back in the field as well. So drivers yet to have taken their stop in this race: Adri Garcia, Kevin Berquist, and Sheldon Rosenbaum. But Ken Huber made his pit stop and came out in second. Still 4 seconds ahead of Kevin Berquist. That just shows how strong he's been in this race. James Foreman is, of course, battling Sheldon Rosenbaum virtually right now. We saw Rosenbaum not come into the pits when Foreman did. Foreman pitting on lap 28 of the GT3 laps. So not too long ago, but interesting to see where those two shake out, because that is a strong fight that we've seen for second place in this race. Well, now that we have hit that 1 hour mark, we'll keep our eye on these pit stops coming up for these GT3s, but take just a few minute break and we'll be right back with you. back with the end of this race. You can see Sheldon Rosenbaum coming out of this pit cycle with a pretty healthy gap on James Foreman behind. I mean, 2 seconds, maybe not healthy to some drivers, but given how close they've been through a lot of this race so far, seems pretty good. Only 9 seconds between Ken Huber and Sheldon Rosenbaum, so I mean, it's not enough that I think Rosenbaum's going to be catching up to Huber, but it's less than we've seen Huber win in the past. We've seen some wins from him that get up to the 40, 50-second mark. So still a very strong showing. And again, a strong showing for the Ferrari as well. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 8th, 9th, I think even 10th and 11th. Or just 8th, 9th, and 11th in this race. So especially because some of these guys are using it for the first or second time on the season. So not even that familiar with it. It's doing really well, at least here at this track. But it does seem like that's it's shifting more and more to a field full of Porsches and Ferraris, but we just don't see any of the Porsches higher than 7th place. Don McCloy is the highest runner in the Porsche in the field, and there's not another one back until Zach Nuremberger there in 12th. Bit of an update on the GTDB field. So obviously James Foreman winning. Jack Lucas has had an exciting race where he has battled a lot of guys around him and already qualified well in 8th, up a couple spots to that 6th place spot. Is a little worried from that looming Porsche of Don McCloy behind, who's up 13 spots. But Kevin Berquist, who just made up another spot on Garcia. I think Garcia went out wide. Yes, we do have an incident. We'll take a look at that right after this. But Kevin Berquist is currently on the GTDB podium, a couple spots ahead of Richard Curry there, which would be a good result for him. Again, Kevin Berquist right now is 3rd in the standings. He does have a pretty significant gap to that duo of Jesse Coffey and James Foreman, but obviously with Jesse Coffey out of this race back in 19th, Kevin Berquist, while he can't do a lot to catch up to James Foreman, can do a lot to try to catch up to Jesse Coffey. Now, we just saw, did we just see something in the background there? All right, let's catch up real quick. Adrian Garcia, this is how the spot was grabbed by Berquist. So this is Stowe, it looks like. Not making a move, just losing it in a bit of that dirty air, I think. Lucky to stay out of the way of everyone else. But Sheldon Rosenbaum went off track, and he has lost. That was very, didn't get a lot of context to what that incident was. Looks like that was maybe Maggots Beckett's, as the leader of the race, Jack Colville, slips by as well. But losing that spot to James Foreman. Then we had a couple more incidents for AJ Garcia. So Garcia has another incident here. A bit of a netcode collision with Nicholas Paletti. Couldn't get it slowed down and into the wall. Looks like he actually fared decently well given the strength of that collision. Then we had Mauricio Parada off track in the exact same cars. Oh, what in the world happened there? That was a massive tank slapper. His rear wing detaching from the car all the way at the start of the lap too, so just not even deciding to try to limp it around that whole track. And then again in the other Ferrari car, Adrian Garcia dealing with a little bit of the damage from that wall, heading down the Wellington Straight, and I guess just feels something's off enough that he's going to tow it in. So within just a few seconds, we've got both of them on screen there, both Ferraris towing into the pits, and guys who were really strongly vying for some positions early in this race seem to both be out of this race already. So that promotes some of these guys here in this midfield especially. Right now, this battle between Nuremberger and Westland that has continued on is for the 11th place spot. Could be more if Aaron Claybaugh's bold strategy decision doesn't work, but I think given how late we saw some of these drivers pit, again, we saw Rosenbaum all the way until lap 30, as well as Kevin Berquist. Very possible that that Aaron Claybaugh can make it to the end. Nathan Westland just all over the back of Nuremberger. Nuremberger not even responding, not even reacting to that car in the mirror for Westland. I think maybe knowing he wasn't trying to send the move down there. Again, Westland trying to make a pass there in that section, 20 laps ago or so. ended up on the losing end of that deal. So, but he has a bit of a run there, maybe through Brooklands. Not anything there. But Nürnberger is starting to look a little more flustered than he has over the last few corners. John Kelly just trying to pick a good time to get through. He's going to split the two. Taking the outside was Westland, but he got a little bit of draft from that GTP. It looks like things have evened back out. Through Cops now heading down into Maggots Beckett's, and no pass will be made into this section. But who's going to nail the momentum as they make their way through the exit? Through the exit, and I don't see an advantage really to either driver. Just behind Philip Ranieri, getting a spot on Andrew Hicks, so we'll go to a replay of that after we make sure nothing happens too exciting into this corner. Looks like nothing's happened. Look back at Ranieri making the pass. Hicks already seems to be going slow. Maybe has to slow down to serve there. Yeah, obviously an easy pass into that Maggots Beckett's complex for Philip Ranieri. Ranieri up to the 13th spot. And a strong showing for him today. Qualified in 17th, making his way up a few positions in the rare Mercedes. We're not seeing a lot of Mercedes. Used to be one of the biggest cars in this field. I think we're only seeing Jack Lucas up there in 6th and Philip Ranieri in 13th as the only guys using it here tonight. Meanwhile, Ken Huber up in that front spot with the Lamborghini. Apparently not becoming a popular choice. We saw a couple races where the Lamborghini was widely used among the field, but nobody else following suit. Again, Huber saying he didn't choose the Lamborghini as a meta pick or any sort of strategy. Just randomly picked one to use for the whole season and let the driving speak for itself. And it has certainly done so far this season. Oh, and a slow, very, very slow for Nürnberger. Westland nearly losing control of the car. Nürnberger had it parked on the apex so much. I think he really parked it too much to where he put himself in some danger there. Take a look also, Don McCloy, that hard charger, up 13 positions on the race and trying to get 14. He's 2/10 back from Jack Lucas. Lucas has had a great race. He's in that second place spot for GTDB. This would not be losing him that second place spot in the class. It just would be a couple more points back. But Jack Lucas is the number 5 driver in the championship. He is at 226 points. Westland 227. Berquist 229. And even if we go behind him, Andrew Hicks at 221. So that fight for third right now is extremely tight. And obviously Kevin Berquist is having a good race. Nathan Westland is having a good race. Andrew Hicks is having a little, not as good a race as the others, but still up a spot from where he started there in 14th. But Jack Lucas, who's third of that group, can come out on top and maybe be third in the championship with this 6th overall, maybe dropping down to 7th if Don McCloy's able to make something happen here. Meanwhile, haven't talked about him for a little bit, but Colville here is continuing to lead out at front. It's almost 10, 11 second gap, and it has been for a while. Skip slower in most sectors over the last little bit. I don't think that Skip is going to be making a charge over these last 16 minutes or so to make that chance for another victory. Skip won't be upset with the second, given that his main competitor, Nick Terrell, is out of this race back there in 5th. Of course, Paletti has also been a competitor throughout this season. He's a little bit further back. Of course, Terrell just 1 point back from him. So still a net positive for Skip, but would have preferred that win here at this track. Would have been nice to have, but it really wasn't even due to a mistake from Paul Skip. Just a great drive for Jack Colville. Made a nice and clean move for that first place overall. And an impressive drive that we've seen from him. Again, Ken Huber as well. Looking like he's going to win handily here tonight. Just hand over fist. Gaining more and more time over James Foreman here. Again, we saw the gap was more like 8 or 9 seconds a little bit ago. Here late in this race, he's really starting to hammer in these sectors. And now with 15 minutes to go, just continuing to plug away. 2/10 faster for Foreman, actually there in that first sector. So a a sector lost there at the very least, but has overall just been undefeated here. Literally undefeated over the last 6 races for Ken Huber. 7 races if you include today. Again, I don't have to say what's going on. Westland fighting Nürnberger into a popular passing opportunity. Nothing able to be done. Just seems like eventually he's going to be able to make that move, but Nürnberger's doing quite well to put his car in the spots to make it that difficult to get that pass done with. So Westland might have to get a little creative. Paul Skip makes his way through. This might help. This might help. Some lap of traffic. Nürnberger not able to take the line I think he really wanted. Skip's going to send it up the inside again. Not what Nürnberger wants. He's going to have to stick it around the outside. Skip, I think, playing nice. And you're lucky to stay ahead there. I think there's a few ways that whole situation could have gone that would have been a lot worse for Nürnberger, but he did seem to lose some momentum. Westland's still just not making that bold move. I mean, I don't blame him. It's a long race. You don't want to lose out your entire race due to something dumb. It just seems like one of these times he could really, surprise, I think, Nürnberger if he put an aggressive move out there. Maybe at least if it was something where he gave himself an out and a way to bail out of it. But Don McCloy still chasing down Jack Lucas, but just for a second there, Lucas had brought the gap to Langenberg down to sub 1 second. He did it again there. Langenberg, who is charging back through the field after some early incidents and doing a good job to persevere through that. But late in this race, Lucas maybe with a little bit of pace. I mean, he's getting chased down, obviously, pretty strongly by Don McCloy here, but still able to catch up is what's really impressive. Keeping it stock standard through the first section of this track. Again, Colville heading up on these guys. So race leader coming through and see if that shakes things up a little bit. But Colville does not have to rush through this field. He's got a 13-second gap now. Obviously, Skip losing some time in that in this exact section that we just saw there back with Westland and Nürnberger, which again continues to be close. Sub 2 tenths. Now through Maggotts Beckett's, lots of tire squeal for Westland. And just where are you supposed to go here? It's just not a passing opportunity through that section. You need to nail the exit, and I don't think hitting that curb helped him. All right, that was not Maggotts Beckett's, excuse me. That was sector 1 of the race. That was Abbey and then into Farm Curve. But still, not able to make anything happen. That has been a good passing opportunity, especially for the bold. We've seen some bold moves from Westland on the season, but a metered response here tonight for him, and he might be able to have a gap. Just the Nürnberger opening the door ever so slightly, but he's not opening the easy doors. He's opening a door to a difficult-looking pass. I think Westland not wanting to commit to it entirely, which don't blame him there, but some battles are getting a little closer late in this race. Andrew Hicks now catching up to Philip Ranieri. We saw Ranieri pass Andrew Hicks for this position all the way back on lap 34. So 10 laps later, he's coming back at him. We saw Hicks slow down for something. I guess it's not 10 laps. 10 laps for the GTPs. It's probably more like 5 or 6 laps later. But don't really know what happened to cause that to the positions to swap in the first place. But Hicks with some pace here to try to turn it back around. Again, McCloy pressuring Lucas, and despite that, Lucas catching up to Langenberg. I think Langenberg held up a bit by Paul Skip there, but that exit looked a little weak for Lucas. I think he was trying a different line than Langenberg, and he might be under attack here down into Brooklands. Let's see with Don McCloy into the braking zone. If he's going to try, he's going to head out to the left. Oh, he doesn't make it happen. Still some laps to do. So not a do or die situation yet. I just really thought that was going to be it there. He had that positive momentum. He was pretty far back, I think if he had really sent it down the inside, I think Jack Lucas would see him coming. But of course, I want to see the most exciting thing to happen, and McCloy wants to get those points. I mean, he's done a very good job tonight to do that. Up 13, he started in 20th place out of 22, and he's now up into 7th, knocking on the door of the top 5. Is he going to try to make the move? He can't. Surely he can't. Had to overspeed. Decided why not put it there, but yeah, surely can't make that move stick. Oh, but a good exit there. Really bad exit for Jack Lucas. This is going to be a potential move into Stowe. Lucas, nothing he can do, but does he have that better speed advantage in the Mercedes? It looks like that Porsche's struggling, despite the better exit, to do anything into Stowe, and Jack Lucas is going to maintain that position. I can't imagine how frustrated Don McCloy must feel right now. The car just not doing him any favors, and he seems to be nailing everything like he should, but he's not getting the runs he needs into these corners. Sheldon Rosenbaum for just a second, bringing that second place gap to under 1 second. He lost it a long time ago with an incident to James Foreman. Could he potentially get the spot back? I mean, of course, catching up is one thing, passing is another. With just a few laps, he really needs to turn on the afterburners to make this happen. But I'd love to see a battle in those overall podium spots up there kind of start to brew here late. So we'll keep an eye on that. We got actually a lot of battles starting to actually heat up here. Richard Curry catching up to Bergquist, who's catching up to Claybaugh. Very bad exit for Claybaugh. Went super deep in Village, maybe struggling on the tires. Remember, Claybaugh pit a long time ago. He's been going on this stint for a lot longer than these guys have. We saw Claybaugh pit on lap 15, Bergquist pit on lap 30. 15 lap newer tires, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. Can Claybaugh even manage to stay ahead at the end of this lap? He just looks like he's struggling so hard, and that's if he's not having to manage some fuel, because it was a very aggressive strategy as far as how early he pit. You can really see the effect as we head through some of these higher G corners. Cops into Maggots Beckett's Chapel will be an ultimate test of these worn tires for Aaron Claybaugh, and it seems like that's where Kevin Bergquist is getting this extra speed. Claybaugh not close to the driver in front, so this is really just a fight for that 8th place spot, because it's 15 seconds up to Don McCloy in front. Claybaugh keeping his car on the road at the very least. Can he fight until the end of this race? He's going to struggle into the braking zone of the Vale chicane as well. That battle with Westland and Nürnberger, quote-unquote, has expanded a little bit. Was over a second there, and Bergquist right on the tail. Almost going a little wide. Richard Curry trying to get involved, trying to be opportunistic. Kevin Bergquist on the inside. Couldn't quite get his nose in there to prevent Claybaugh from chopping off that corner, but he has a bit of a run here as well. Through the final corner, down the Hamilton straight. Is he going to make one of those moves into turn 1 like we've seen? There seems to be a pace differential. No, maybe a move into Village. It just seems like it's going to happen. But can Aaron Claybaugh keep up this stellar defending despite clearly not having the car with the pace right now? That right there, good way to take that corner, hugging the inside to go ultra defensive, prevented Bergquist from doing anything too surprising. With 6 minutes left, these guys are left with just a few laps to go. And to really make an impression on this race, positions up and down this GT3 field that are still being fought for and still could be anybody's play. Paul Skip, a little bit of an off track there, losing some time, losing a couple seconds, more than a couple, down 3 or 4 seconds with an incident there. So down to 21 seconds off Jack Colville. Dominating win for Jack Colville here tonight. And the other thing I think Claybaugh really needs to be mindful of is if he loses a spot to Bergquist here, he needs to immediately stem the flow and not let Richard Curry take advantage and slide through at the same time. It's very difficult to say, but Curry just a tenth and a half off the back of Bergquist. So if Bergquist able to make something happen and it disadvantages Aaron Claybaugh's line a little bit, Claybaugh may not be able to defend against that hard-charging Ferrari of Curry as well. Also trying to see if anything happens with this battle. Was a second. Now it's down to 2/10 again. Nothing through that exit. This is extra close into this game. Is Curry going to send it? Curry might be sending it on the inside. Oh, it seemed like he thought about really making that happen. I think if the tires were just in a bit better condition, he could have. Philip Rainieri and Andrew Hicks may have just got together. Both drivers being involved in a crash. That was Jack Colville making his way through. Rainieri starting to spin, and yeah, nothing that Hicks could do to expect that, I don't think. But both drivers, I think, getting going without losing any more positions in order. But those 4 bonus points or 4 safety points are going to hurt to add to that total. Nathan Westland just still not able to make the move happen. Nuremberger not really doing a lot to defend, all things considered, but the placement has been really strong of the car. See how he occupies the inside of that corner? We've seen all the strong passes on the inside there, big dives down the inside, but he's just hugging that apex. He's not being really defensive and weaving or anything. But Kevin Bergquist got the move on Aaron Clayball. Right when I look away, of course. Paul Skip into the pit lane as well. Did he hit a incident limit potentially? Bergquist, though, ahead of Aaron Clayball. It seemed like it was a foregone thing, but Clayball was really nailing the defense. He did not lose to Richard Curry, which is the most important thing. Let's take a look at a replay. This is down the Wellington Straight, and Clayball, just absolutely no grip on the outside. It wasn't even a blown corner or anything like that. It just didn't even look like he was in the same class of car with this extra long stint that he's going on. So we'll see if he's able to continue that defense. Paul Skip now down behind Nick Paletti. I don't know why he made that pit stop. Oh yeah, I guess we expect 2 stops for the GTPs. We haven't seen the second stop for any of these drivers. Paul Skip unable to go all the way on 1 stop, but can Nick Paletti do it? Because if Paletti can, I mean, it's only 1 second, so between the two, this is extremely close. And right now, Richard Curry is trying to get that spot. I think he's officially ahead, yes, and Clayball I think he's going to back off now as his tires are cooked. He did the defense that he tried. He did his best, and hats off to him for that effort, but it just was never going to be able to last that long. I'm sure he wished this was a 1 hour 25 minute race rather than 1 hour 30, because it just wasn't able to stretch it that long. Jack Colville there not going to the pits, and I think they're hitting white flag next lap, so maybe a bit of a strategy blunder for Paul Skip as he's having to pit twice, and it looks like his competitors not having to. Meanwhile, McCloy, is he finally going to get the spot on Jack Lucas? It doesn't look like it. Is Lucas finally going to get the spot on Tyler Langenberg? Not through these corners, at least. John Kelly is going to pick his way through. Kelly in 4th place. Maybe Skip able to get to Nicholas Paletti. I don't know if Paletti's trying to do too much fuel saving or not. That is definitely a key thing to notice. And I don't think they would have hit the white flag last lap, but it is possible. Keep an eye on that gap for Skip Paletti. This is what it looks like into, I think, the second to last lap. Hard to tell. We don't have a notification of the white flag. So try to keep an eye on the behaviors of everybody. Sheldon Rosenbaum has now cut the gap to 0.3 to James Foreman. I don't know who to follow right now. Richard Curry, 1/10 back. He's trying to get Kevin Bergquist. Both guys getting by Aaron Clayball, but their battle still hasn't finished up. Westland unable to get past Zach Nuremberger. That has continued on for quite a while with, unfortunately, no move able to be made. Rosenbaum, we've already seen make a pass on James Foreman. It was a strong pass into Village, I believe. And that is what they're heading through now. Wasn't close enough to try to replicate that move. Paul Skip is following now into Cops. Nicholas Paletti, can he make anything happen? Not yet. They're going to be heading through Maggots Beckett's. That will not be a passing opportunity, so we switch back through the field again to Rosenbaum, who's on the tail down the straight of the Wellington Straight into Brooklands and shades inside, but not really trying to make that move. No sins being made. This is for second place, and he's not doing it. Richard Curry has got by Kevin Bergquist. So that move was made. Strong move. It looks like probably into turn one, so a bold move to be made. As we try to follow Paul Skip, and he's way around the outside. They got Philip Rainieri in the traffic. Andrew Hicks comes into the pits. Paul Skip, strong on the brakes, bit of a lockup. He was really trying to be aggressive there, not able to make it happen. So we follow. So this is the white flag lap here. They are not getting the checker flag there. So still another opportunity for these guys to make this happen. Colville right now going through Copse, so quite a bit ahead of these two. The gap is now about a second between these two drivers for second, third. That may not be possible. Yeah, Paul Skip. Maybe a slowdown. Not trying to make it happen. Sheldon Rosenbaum, 1/10. He's got the inside line. James Foreman. Can Foreman make the defense? It looks like he can through Stowe. Maybe Rosenbaum should have just saved that momentum for the Vale chicane. It's a much more conventional passing opportunity, but he's got to get it creative here late. They're about to start the white flag lap. This is for second place. Ken Huber's going to get the win. He's 9 seconds ahead of James Foreman. Jack Colville's 47 seconds ahead of Nick Belletti, and he's going to get the win. And it's a late white flag as well, so that might mess with some people's strategy. Rosenbaum the most likely to grab a position here. See if anything happens. 3/10 back. This was where he made the pass earlier. Not able to do anything there. We saw him get close down the Wellington Straight. Can he nail this village section through the loop, through Aintree? He looks just hooked onto the back bumper. Drivers behind are finished. Tyler Lingenberg finishing in 5th. So drivers come across the line. Jack Colville has crossed the line as the victor. Congratulations to Jack Colville here on a victory. So we could check the on live action with Sheldon Rosenbaum trying to make the move into Brooklands. Can't quite do it. He's wiggling all around the wheel, heading through Luffold, and I don't think he's going to be a good opportunity until we get to Stowe. Can the move be made? Kevin Berquist was unable to get back up to Richard Curry, finishing just half a second back. Nicholas Belletti crossing the line 4 seconds ahead of Paul Skip. We follow with this tight battle. Rosenbaum turning a little bit earlier there, almost making it look like a passing opportunity. Now they're headed through Maggots Beggots. The exit is crucial for Rosenbaum, for Foreman to keep their position, to gain a position. Both these guys in this Ferrari fighting tooth and nail for this last spot. They may be in different classes, but they're fighting for the same points here tonight. It looks like a good enough exit for Foreman, I think, to defend in the Stowe. The last opportunity is going to be a desperate send into the Vale chicane for Sheldon Rosenbaum. Can he make it happen? The wipers are going. He takes a bit more of an inside line. Does he have the tire life in him? He hits the dirt. He's close. He's 2/10. He's 2.5 I think James Foreman is going to be okay as long as he nails this braking zone. Rosenbaum nowhere to go. What a battle for the end of this. Oh, and he gets some air as he hits the curb. I don't shame him for trying. Wonderful battle here at the end of the race. Rosenbaum unable to get it, but finishing with a podium. 2 podiums in the 2 races he's raced here. What a race that we had here tonight. I know the drivers are going to complain about it, but this was an absolutely stellar race that we had. So let's see if we get some guys showing up in the waiting room. Go over our official race results while we wait. For the GTP field, Jack Colville, winner from 6th on the grid, with Nicholas Belletti a whole 44 seconds back. Paul Skip, championship leader, finishing in 3rd. John Kelly with 4th, and Nick Terrell, the championship contender, only in 5th. Jay Smart and Paul Boyle round out the field. For the GTDs, Ken Huber with another win in a row. No shocker to see there. James Foreman with a very tight battle late against Sheldon Rosenbaum, rounding out the total podium. Foreman with another B-class win. Christopher Newby, Tyler Langenberg, and Jack Lucas round out the top 6. Following them is Don McCloy, Richard Curry, Kevin Berquist, and Aaron Claybaugh. Zach Nuremberger, Nathan Westland, Philip Rainieri, Dan Barnett, Andrew Hicks, Todd Schneider, Adrian Garcia, Mauricio Parada, Jesse Coffey, and Greg Holland. And lastly, Daniel Sykes and Jeff McDonald. All right, so we have James Foreman in the booth. We'll grab him here. James, you hearing me up here?
Yeah.
I mean, I have to assume you're about as out of breath as I am, given the into that race. I mean, you had an exciting race. You fought with Sheldon Rosenbaum early. Obviously qualified really well. Fought with him early. Lost that spot, I believe, in that village chicane. Got the spot again due to a mistake that he made, and then he brought it to you late. For it looked like probably 10 laps straight. What was that experience, especially in that final lap?
Yeah, that was probably one of the most intense races so far this season, racing Sheldon, because he pushed me right from the beginning. He was pushing me the whole way, and then he got past me. And then, like you said, he made a mistake, and I got past him. And then all of a sudden, I see him slowly creeping up on me the whole race, and then he's right behind me, like 3-4 laps to go. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. It was crazy.
Now, you came into the race with just a 3-point lead on Jesse Coffey. He unfortunately had some incidents during his race, so came in a tight battle. Should be coming out of race 9 with a really strong lead on that B-Class championship. Coming up to some more F1, FIA Grade 1 type tracks. We've got COTA next week. What are you expecting next week? I think that a lot of drivers don't like Silverstone, but they also don't like COTA. So,
yeah, well, with Jesse, it's like some tracks he's really fast and he's way ahead of me, and then others it seems to be I'm faster than him on certain tracks. And COTA, that's going to be a tough one. I struggle with that one a little bit, but I got a week to practice with it, so hopefully I can maintain my points lead because that's the goal for the season, and keep battling with Jesse. It's been a strong competitor so far.
Well, that is 7 podiums on the season, win number 3, pole number 3. So congratulations on a fantastic performance here tonight. And we look forward to maybe hearing from you again next week.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Have a good night, James.
You too.
That was our GTD B winner, James Foreman. Now we're going to bring in our GTD A winner, Ken Huber. Ken, you get me in the booth here.
Hey, Zach. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm a little bit out of breath. That was a extremely exciting race. I know maybe you held that first place position pretty comfortably for a lot of it. There was absolute insanity going on behind you. But win number 8, and it's been across a good variety of tracks. What do you think? We're nearing that halfway point in the season. What are you looking forward to in the second half? Are you going to keep up this win streak that you've got going?
Well, I'm going to try to keep up the pace. I actually got to thank you there, Zach. You actually turned me on to something last week, or the last time I spoke to you about this track. I told you that I hated Silverstone and liked COTA, and so when I went out to practice last week, I was like, I started driving this place. I'm like, well, this is exactly like COTA. Why do I hate it? So I made myself love it, and I actually found some speed here. So you gave me my first win here. So hats off to you.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely credit myself.
I'm sure the competition would be thanking you later because they're probably hating on me.
That would be the first instance of a commentator's blessing. It's usually a commentator's curse from up here. Didn't have any curse here today. A clean race for you again, and another pole position for you as well. Which that you've had the wins this season. You won all but one race, but the poles especially have come lately. I think you've got pole in the last 4 races, if I'm not mistaken. So where's that extra qualifying performance come from? You're using the same car.
Yeah, that I don't know. It's just I guess the second half of this season or so, I just been able to turn it on more. I guess more comfortable with taking more risks during qualifying. I usually will play it safe on qualifying and not joust myself and end up in the back. So that's kind of, I've been pushing a little bit harder. Maybe that's the reason. But hey, I want to give out a shout to Tyler Langenberg early in that race, man. He looked really strong in that Audi. And I guess you were talking about carnage tonight. I didn't see any of it. I can tell you that the GTPs were about as nerve-wracking as any place that we've been this year. And if you catch him in the wrong spot, it was scary out there.
Yeah, I won't call it carnage because it was really clean, just incredible racing throughout the field. But yeah, really exciting race. you were a part of that, getting that very dominant victory again. So we'll look forward to seeing you again next week at COTA, a track that you like, which, again, not a lot of drivers do, so you're already getting a step up on that part. So we're looking forward to seeing you there in another absolute blockbuster of a race.
All right. Thanks, Zach. You have a good week.
Have a good night, Ken. That was our GTDA winner, Ken Huber. So I don't think Jack Colville is in the booth. So again, Colville, and when I'm looking at the standings, I mean, he hasn't, that may have actually been a debut victory for him there. So again, congratulations to Jack Colville. An incredible win for him. One that came off only a sixth place grid slot, second from the back. So as I try to get a bit of a breather in here, I'm sure everyone watching was just about as excited about this race heading into the very end of this. So again, if you are looking for this racing next week, we're going to be at COTA. That's Circuit of the Americas near Austin, Texas. Another F1 track, one that should give a lot of good clean racing again. So we look forward to seeing you there again next week. Everyone, have a good night.